Hey, Portland. It's said that language is the main thing that separates man from animal. We name things to give them a relationship to us and to give them a relationship to us as well. Words solidify what is abstract, and the boundaries, the definitions of a word are kind of what a thing is and a thing isn't. We all know the power of words to hurt and heal, whether in a tweet or face-to-face, and being aware of the words that we use with others is more important now than ever. But sometimes we forget about the words that we use when we define ourselves and talk about ourselves and our aspirations. And I'm going to talk a little bit about not only how language shapes our perspective of the world, but also how maybe we can use words to define and even reframe our own lives. I'm not a linguist, first of all. I'm not an English scholar. I'm a designer and an artist here in Portland. But I've been telling stories since I was a little kid, initially via games like Dungeons & Dragons, in which we'd create these vast collaborative narratives as a group, literally world building with words, literally. Later on, I immersed myself in hip-hop culture as a dancer and a graffiti writer and a rapper, and that was a world of this kind of active character creation. It was myth-making through music and language. Like David said, I currently host a spelling bee here in town for the last 6 years, in which we use language as a basis for participation and play. I run an etymology blog, which visualizes the history of words, and I even recently started working on my own constructed fictional language, just for fun, of course. I've always been building worlds with words, but only recently have I started to think about how it can change my life with words. To give a little context, for the last 15 years as a designer, I've worked in the music industry, at agencies, freelance, most recently at a big company, which I left in 2012 to start my own business, my own agency, because that's what I thought that designers like me were supposed to do. I had made a model off of what I saw the people that I looked up to doing, and many of my peers that I was trying to keep up with, many of whom are here today. And I realized that I was chasing a dream that wasn't even really my dream at all. After a couple years into my business, I started to get stressed beyond belief and overwhelmed, and like many of us can probably relate to, I had trouble asking for help. I kind of broke down. Although the business was technically going well, it just wasn't for me when it came to the stuff that I was doing with the business exactly. I transitioned back to it just being me from having employees. And as I started to pick up the pieces and figure out what's next, I became obsessed with words. I started writing. I started reading philosophy, and philosophy of language in particular, and I had some breakthroughs. And the first breakthrough I had was to stop chasing my dream. Let me explain. So, chase your dreams is something that we hear all the time, especially as English speakers. You may have the phrase pinned up above your desk at work or on the wall of your bedroom. It's an incredible sentiment. I've never been one to hang my hat on these kind of motivational phrases in general, but as I started to learn more about language, it changed the way I think about platitudes and the ubiquity of these kind of platitudes. There's this book, it's called Metaphors We Live by linguists George Lakoff and Mark Johnson, and in it they propose metaphor as the building blocks of how we use language itself, and therefore how we understand the world. The foundations of how we speak are metaphoric. Not just metaphors like what you hear in love songs or ideas of simile and analogy, but the actual makeup of the words that we use every single day. There's this theory, it's called the Embodied Cognition theory. It states that the fact that we are actually human beings in bodies, in space, shapes the way that we view the world. As infants, trying to put food into our mouths or toddle to our mothers, as hunter-gatherers trying to survive in the wild, in a primeval forest, the way we exist in the world in space shapes the way we view it. Now think of the words that we use all the time and how they kind of reinforce these ideas. For example, when we talk about feelings or the mind, these kind of concepts, we often talk about things being inside or outside of us. I'm in love with her. That went over my head. I'm feeling a little out of it today. And when we try to conceptualize time, for example, we talk about events being literally in front of or behind us. I'm looking forward to the after party. Things were better back when there were more record stores. But chasing your dreams, following your bliss, the pursuit of happiness, all in this search for meaning. Think about those words: chasing, pursuing, following. These words have this kind of survival-based idea, right? They propose a predator-prey relationship to concepts that we create ourselves. Dreams and happiness, those are things that we realize we make real ourselves. They're not creatures that hide in the bushes that we go and catch with a net. I know it's all semantic, and that it's literally semantic, and that these phrases become culturally accepted, become socially accepted, they become cliche, and perhaps the metaphoric roots, those foundations aren't important at all as long as we learn how to positively apply them to our lives. Totally get that. But I found that by being more conscious of the words that we use when we talk about those ideas of dreams and aspirations and hopes, that maybe we can be more active in the way that we make meaning in our own lives as human beings. So, for example, take the term human being. I love that term. Human, a noun. Being, a verb. The idea of something thought of as a noun suddenly made verb is so powerful. I like to think that I'm a verb. Active, dynamic, evolving, right? How many of you have ever had to write your own personal bio for a resume or a website? Yeah, sucks, right? Yeah, having to define your whole life in a paragraph. It's great. No, it's daunting. I recently was speaking to a class of soon-to-be graduates about writing their own personal bios. As I walked in the room, I met 15 petrified faces staring back at me. Not literally. They were scared to even start the process. And the task of defining yourself, especially as a fresh graduate, is incredibly scary. It's this transformation of role from student to whatever it is that you are next. The point of consolation I had for them, however, is that we change. We're supposed to change. We're supposed to be the different people today than we were yesterday. And your bios could and should evolve as well. Philosopher Gilles Deleuze states that being is nothing more than a momentary freezing of the infinite process of becoming. I think that means that you can update your bio tomorrow. It's translated. Back to human being. So I had this idea that if human being can be a verb, if I'm going to position it as such, perhaps my creative studio itself could be more verb-like, just as dynamic and active and evolving. My creative studio being the sum of all of my creative activity in the world. Human being, studio, doing. Sounds weird. Hear me out. If I'm being, then doing are all the things that we do that affect our world. Having this idea started to make this kind of personal framework towards being, this kind of personal approach. And using the terms active doing and passive doing, using more words to create these kind of orientation towards being for myself, I started to make this conceptual map based on these two ideas. So active doing is what we commonly think of as making things. It's working, collaborating with others, drawing, writing. It's tangible, it's output. Passive doing, therefore, is everything else. It's input, but always oriented towards action. To me, passive doing it's the kind of application and synthesis of the constant input around us at all times with intention. It means thinking. It means being curious, paying attention to everything, no matter how seemingly irrelevant or superfluous, as everything must have relative meaning, which can be unfolded if you just try. And I use that term unfolding intentionally. I love that term, unfolding. To me, unfolding is approaching everything as if it has more than one dimension. Nothing is basic. It means that everything matters. Using these kind of terms, I've reframed and redefined my life in a way that has made me more open. And although I may not be happier per se, I'm definitely more present and engaged than I've ever been in my life. Not chasing, but doing. We are not the same people we were yesterday. You're not going to be the same person you are tomorrow. Maybe by thinking about the words that you use, you can reframe yourself and not be other people's ideas of what you're supposed to be. And maybe by thinking about the words that you use to define yourself, you can reframe your life as I have mine. You're a human being. Be a verb. Redefine yourself. Unfold your world. Thank you.